Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Do we have any comments from the audience? Okay. Seeing none, how about corrections to the agenda or the consent calendar?
There is one item that we're going to request to be added.
Okay.
Want to describe what we're going to add?
Sure. We're adding an emergency declaration for damage to the recycled water facilities out at Diamond Valley Ranch due to the rain event that occurred yesterday and could be occurring this afternoon as well.
And so this item came to the attention of the district after the agenda was published, and the item cannot wait for action until the next meeting.
And so will we make that C?
Yes, we can make that C.
And then we'll approve the agenda as corrected or as
Correct.
amended.
But I do need a vote on this to add it by 4/5 vote.
I move to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
So is this going on as 6C?
I never got one.
Oh, you didn't get it?
No, I just figured you were leaving me out. Yes.
Yes, this will be 6C.
6C, okay. Added it.
No, it didn't pop up. Sorry.
That
Hey, John.
motion passed unanimous. Yeah, we were having some issues with your screen earlier, so.
Okay, well, I'll tell you if it doesn't pop up.
Okay. Adoption of the consent calendar?
I'll move adoption of the consent calendar and approval.
I'll second that.
Yes.
I don't know why, we're gonna have.
That's
to-
okay. I can figure it out for the rest of the day.
I'll just call yours out.
We got two more things to worry about.
That motion passes unanimous.
Okay, and that brings us to item 6A, EBO.
Good afternoon, board members. Board agenda item 6A is the request to continue the emergency action until the Tillette Creek Sewer Pipeline Project can be built in September 2022. This is the same item which we brought before you 2 weeks ago, and which we will continue to do until we start that work in September. Questions?
I'll move to approve.
No questions.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Caught it that time.
And the motion passes unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to Mr. Thiel.
Thank you.
Goals.
So in February, the board approved a set of 2022 goals for the general manager, 89 goals across 12 strategic categories to advance proactive, results-oriented performance at the district. We've been working hard on all of these this year. The board, our committees, staff, council, community partners, lobbyists, legislators, regulators, and others. So today I'm providing you with a mid-year completion status of these goals. There are 89 goals. I'm not going to go through every one unless you'd like me to, but we certainly can. But I do want to go through them and maybe pick out a few of the more interesting ones and some that I'd really like some board direction moving forward. So, as part of this agenda item, the board was provided a summary of the goals with the mid-year assessment. And I think we have some copies out there for the crowd, if you're sitting in following along with us. But overall, so far this year, I would say good to excellent progress across all 12 categories. Some goals need more attention. Some are complete. And for some, I would like some additional board direction. That would really be appreciated. And I believe we can take comments in this open session or also in closed session as you like. So, yeah, I just want to highlight maybe one or two from each section in terms of status, achievement, or the need for more action, comment, direction. So I'm just going to start in with the first goal, provide exemplary customer service. And I just wanted to point out goal 1A, to develop a more equitable water and sewer connection fee billing structure, which is complete. We have a new square footage-based fee structure with many beneficial outcomes, including affordable housing. For goal 2, provide support to the board for effective decision-making. 2A, provide the level of information necessary to support the board in a timely manner for effective decision-making. And so I'm seeking certainly board comment on this, either now or later. And then also on 2B, facilitate effective board and committee meetings, investigate ways to reduce the number of board meetings, manage agendas more effectively to balance meeting content and time. And I feel like we've been certainly doing this, and really a special thanks to Melanie and Paul and Gary for working on the payment of claims process. So that is no longer part of our action items, and if we get to a point where there's not much on a board meeting, we can pull it, and payment of claims does not drive a board meeting anymore. So I really want to make the very best use of your time here and our time here together, provide the right amount of information necessary for you to make effective decisions at the board level. Any comments on this time?
Yeah, I'll just say, John, my feeling is I get the right amount of information and I get it in time. I don't feel surprised by anything or overwhelmed by too much or too little. So I really feel like for me, you're right at the sweet spot, and I don't think anything needs to change. Not for me anyway, but other board members may have some different thoughts.
No, I would tend to agree, and I think what's from my perspective, it's been very helpful is that if there is kind of an item that warrants or I desire additional review or analysis of and so forth, that whether it's you or staff members is so quick and thoughtful in providing that for that review. So no, I'm kind of with you. I feel good with the interaction and the information I'm provided.
All good? I don't have, I have more or less one-on-one meetings with board members, generally as they desire. So if you feel like you would like more from me, please let me know. So it looks like we'll move on to goals 3, support community relations and initiatives. So 3B, I wanted to highlight work with the city and other community partners on energy efficiency and community renewable energy initiatives, including solar and biomass. And this is making really good progress with the STZED partner in biomass with the city. And what does that mean? Shelley will have an update here in a little bit to bring us more on the Zero Emissions District partnership with the city. So on biomass and solar and other community power projects. So great progress on that. On 3D, I wanted to talk about work with regional fire and water partners to develop and launch and adopt a hydrant program. So Shelley and Chris worked all around the basin to put this together, and that is essentially ready and waiting to roll out at the right time of the year, which is in the fall before the winter comes. And I think Shelley will have more on that before that time, either next month or the month after, and show you all that we've done. So great progress. Again, thanks to Shelley and Chris. And 3F, other goals. So coordinate on Lake Valley Fire Station. Talked a little bit about that. And work with the Tahoe Keys on water supply and integration alternatives. So working with Lake Valley, that's going to be a very interesting project and a great project for the community. That'll take some time. But our work with the Tahoe Keys, and we just finished an hour meeting with our first 3x3 meeting with the Tahoe Keys Water Company. Expect that's going to take quite a bit of time as well, and it's really for the good of the community. I think we'll have a report out later under our ad hoc report on the subject. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some time for me and engineering and others. So likely some other things we'll have to shift or dog paddle for a little bit. I'm not sure how much or which projects, but kind of just a heads up on that. Goal set 4, promote effective legislative advocacy. On 4C, provide leadership and direction for Regional Water Coalition in state and federal advocacy efforts. This is in progress, on schedule. I've talked about our first ever Lake Tahoe Restoration Act, programmatic funding specifically for water infrastructure projects. Up to $7 million. We're working hard to get as close and up to $7 million as possible. There's at least 2.1 now. So we're working with our partners, with Congress, with Amadee's office, with ENS, to get closer to the 7 this year. And then we have 15 million on board for next year. So first time ever, great progress, and also still working on that $6 million state match. Five, strategic and long-term planning. I want to take a look at 5G. Explore potential alternatives for future district workforce housing and address childcare challenges. Talked about a little bit of this last time in regards to childcare challenges. We're working with our staff who currently have those challenges and are working with them so that they can remote work and provide a flex schedule for them already. We're also working on an official district policy. We've completed a draft policy. It's now under our own legal review at BB&K. We expect to have that in the next few weeks and then roll out that policy so it's a district-wide standard policy for all employees and the availability and the requirements necessary to remote work at the district.
So, sorry, John, real quick. Is the ability to remote work in existence now, and this is just codifying essentially what's already in existence?
It's in existence now under what I would call an accommodation for those requiring special needs at this time.
Right, and so, okay, thank you.
So it kind of codifies it, it makes it standard, so
Okay.
an employee isn't, some managers are more into remote work than other managers, so we're trying to create that consistency throughout the district and a standard policy that's defendable, and that the union supports and that our management group supports and the board supports, that works for the employee. And also, it's got to work for the district. So there are people remote working, and this will just standardize that policy. So I think a month or two. I mean, we're relying on external legal review. So a few weeks maybe from BB&K, it'll go to the union. Could take 1 day, could take 1 month, but or probably something in between. So we're getting close, but we are making those moves for those that need it right now. And the first part of that, the future district workforce housing, have not done a lot on this specifically, a lot of ideas out there. I'm working with Gary to develop a memo on what the possible limitations and opportunities for the district would be in terms of providing different types of workforce housing. So I'll continue to work with Gary on that. And it's going to take some time, but I would expect by the end of the year we will have something, at least a preliminary look at what we can do, some different alternatives and different types of workforce housing that could be made available. Some examples of what other agencies are doing in terms of providing workforce housing or even loans for their own homes, something by the end of the year. Goal 6, provide reliable and safe water distribution, wastewater collection and treatment, and recycled water land application systems. This is a big one, whatever from A to R. So this is a lot of what the district does on the ground. So I'm just going to buzz through a few of these real quick, and then at the end, if there's any comment or questions, why don't we do that? But 6A, we worked with the city to get that $300,000 for city hydrants, 37 hydrants. The hydrants are sitting out back, and Chris, when we get time, we're going to start putting those in. On 6C, replace 2 miles of undersized and leaking water lines. As of yesterday, 2 miles is in the ground and being tested, and we were paving. So we're way ahead of schedule, and that will be done. 6H, pursue plant solar project. As you know, we've shifted to Staten as our solar provider, and we've been working a lot with Shane and Nick on that solar committee. We expect to have something here to the board in September to get this project off the ground and start construction in May.
John, should 6C be modified slightly? I think our new budget has more than 2 miles a year in it. Closer to 3, right? 15,700, something like that.
Probably the fiscal 23 budget. I'm just reflecting what we put in February.
Too high.
Well, I'd like to have a comment on 6C now, John, and why you're so short on meeting that goal of 3 miles.
Well, this is what we'll do this calendar year, and next calendar year it'll be something like 3 or 4 miles, or more. We'll see. We've got a lot of funding out there on the hook.
No, and I just in relation to the solar, obviously that was something that was very important to me that I'd advocated for. I think it's no secret, but just kudos to you, Julie, everyone on staff with everything that's taking place, both professionally and personally. It's easy to lose things. It happens all the time, and to continue to move that forward diligently, I think just a credit to everybody.
For sure, agreed. Especially Julie. Thanks for carrying this forward.
And Trevor.
Gary's frustrated.
Gary, yes. That little power purchase agreement, how much work could that be? Okay. 6J, develop manhole accessibility improvement plan. A little behind schedule, but we'll pick this up. But this is the first time we've ever done this. 6K, complete assessment of sewer and water crossings and prioritize improvements. This is in progress, on schedule. First time we've ever done this. What's after L? 6L, complete system-wide fire hydrant assessment, replace and repair faulty hydrants. We've completed our assessment of over 1,900 hydrants ahead of schedule for the first time ever. And we've replaced all hydrants. I think there's 14 that did not work out there. And we're on our way to fixing the leaky ones and improving access to all the other ones. So, Chris, thanks to your staff, and thanks to engineering for their assistance in this project. Again, the first time ever. 6M begins system-wide valve exercising and assessment program. Identify critical valve replacements. That's in progress. The first time ever for the district. And 6Q, I guess I shouldn't say this one, Ivy. Repair sewer leaks and clogs in a timely manner to avoid impacts to the environment. We have 0 spills to date. So, thanks to Chris, thanks to Ivy and the sewer crew. Impressive work. So that's my quick rundown of the goal segment 6. Any further comments on this or questions? I'll move on to 7. Foster a culture of efficient water use in our community. 7A is increased data collection and analysis to reduce water loss and improve water efficiency efforts. Seek grant funding and partnership to alleviate costs of data collection, analysis, and reporting. So we are on, I would say, within a month of getting over $900,000 in a grant to help fund community-wide water conservation work and actually help fund 3 of our positions here at the district. More on that to come in the next 1 or 2 board meetings. We'll provide you with more detail when the ink's on the contract. Goal set 8, develop staff to ensure professionalism, continuity of organizational knowledge, and succession planning. I just want to highlight 8E, increase cross-training opportunities district-wide. I would say this is in progress and on schedule. New ideas underway to expand cross-training and succession planning opportunities for existing staff. We've recently met with the union and management on new ideas and new programming likely underway in the next 2 months. Goal set 9, continue to be effective financial stewards. 9A, develop a responsible budget for board approval. We did that, and I'd say, that's in progress and on schedule, and we're monitoring spending, minimizing overages, and seeking efficiencies everywhere we can. And thanks to the board and to Paul and to Julie for getting this done. We approved a new budget, which will help get us back on track to those pre-COVID levels and beyond. And again, thanks to Paul, Julie, and the board for getting us here. Goal set 10, provide a safe and harmonious work environment for our employees. Just wanted to highlight 10B, promote an empowered, positive, and productive district culture of excellence throughout all departments, district-wide. So in progress, that's ongoing. Some departments need more attention than others. Would like to revisit our strategy overall, consider training and team building for some. We're building a high-performance, cost-effective, results-driven agency. We also want to be recognized locally, regionally, and beyond as a place where people really want to work and where people come to work expecting to make a difference, a positive difference for our community. So moving on to goal set 11, promote public awareness of all district activities and the value of district services. Real quick on 11C, expand social media presence to highlight district accomplishments, water conservation programs, outages, planned projects, and community events. Great progress on this, Shelley. Increased Facebook audience by 33%, Instagram by 39%. We launched Twitter, expanded LinkedIn. We reached 26,000 people on Facebook, 8,300 people on Instagram, and 1,700 on LinkedIn, with an average of 1 social media post per day. So let's go to 11F, and I'm really looking for some discussion and direction on this item. 11F is to evaluate the feasibility, the pros and cons, the cost of rebranding district name and logo. So Shelley's done some initial research. We're looking for some additional direction today. We talked. This goal was brought forth by Shane, so we did talk to him in a little more detail. We talked about maybe coordinating this as part of an updated, a larger vision, mission, and strategic goals effort, and perhaps, time of year is important and elections are important. Maybe we do this after the elections and early next year. So maybe Shane, I'll tee it up. Any thoughts on this item?
No, we, Shelley and John and I sat down and talked through this a little bit. And again, I think it's just an opportunity to kind of reflect on who we are and where we're going as a district. And, we did discuss this notion of, just revisiting our vision, our mission, and putting more on a platform, who we are and where we're going as kind of a basis for any kind of rebranding or any kind of logo development and that kind of thing. I guess from my understanding, this hasn't really been reflected on for some time, maybe the early 90s, since the last time we went through some kind of visioning session and understanding.
Maybe, yeah. I think 90s.
So, we are delving into energy generation, and perhaps the utility, us as a utility, might be an alternative provider of energy if, we are successful and we can find ways and means to get through CPUC and in terms of some of the tariffs and restrictions that hamper us, and maybe we'd be an alternative to our ratepayers for providing energy. So it's just, I guess it's just really an opportunity to reflect, and then from that, whatever comes out of that visioning and mission statement development, thinking of, just kind of reflecting on who we are. So I guess for me, I think it's something that probably should happen every 10 years or so. And, we're probably due. We're probably 30 years out since the last time we've gone through any kind of exercise related to that. So,
A little different out there.
yeah, things are different.
So is, any other thoughts, or is there concurrence on us kind of expanding this item, but probably pushing that to early next year, sitting with the new board?
I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We'll talk about it with new board.
New board or the same board? Well, we'll see.
Keep looking at Chris.
One more day to decide, right? Okay. Finally, we're on goal set 12, maximize appropriate use of technology to improve operational efficiency and prioritize asset replacement. Want to highlight a couple things here. 12C, establish a biannual leak detection and water loss monitoring program. In progress and on schedule this year, first ever in the history of the district. And really want to thank Steve, Ryan, and Chris. Did I miss anybody? Good. For putting this program together. First time ever. And then finally, 12F, track and report vehicle miles traveled, greenhouse gas emissions, and develop goals. This is in progress. Goal development is in progress. We're now working with AL Utilities and awaiting additional partners in a coordinated effort to really look into sustainability goals at our district and for our partner districts. Not exactly sure what the schedule on this is going to be. We're a partner. We're waiting for kind of this critical mass to join our group with AL Utilities, and then we'll undergo this effort. Really hoping that kicks off this fall. But really excited about that opportunity. We talked a lot about this with the Sustainability Committee. Any further comments from the committee on this item?
Committee first.
No, I think, there's progress been made. There's kind of technological limitations that exist. I also think, to where our partnership is meets where, potential federal monies might be coming in the near future, we might be in a good place, both in terms of, what can be done now, but then also, like any planning exercise, how do you, forecast out in the future?
I guess for me, just getting into this tracking and reporting related to our efficiency and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, et cetera, I guess I've always advocated for starting small and working with the data you do have and starting to get that on paper and out there. I think the work that Dan's doing in terms of water quality monitoring, I think that's a critical component of it, and that should be more forward-facing. People need to know that their water they're drinking is good quality, and but overall, I think the procedure, the process that Ryan has taken us down, he's being very diligent and bringing in staff as part of that development of some of the indicators and metrics that we might be tracking over time. He's basically making sure each one of the departments are on board and willing to be partner to actually generating the information that I think are necessary for kind of annual reporting type things that we'd like to see, I guess.
I guess, do we need to report this to somebody?
I think I guess for me, it's more about measure what matters, and then those things that, if we are, I guess for me, it's about achieving goals and having real data to actually support you making strides towards reducing energy consumption or those other things. So I think for me, it's like more of helping to track achievement of goals and objectives.
Well, as long as it's not awfully expensive, it just seems like you get these numbers and you say, okay, it's 18 billion pounds, whatever that is. Okay, what do we do with that number?
Well, is it going up or is it going down? I mean, do we want to continue to consume? Or I guess for me, it's more about showing a trajectory and the direction that makes a difference.
Is less?
Depends on the metric, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's only so much you can do. You're treating wastewater and you're pumping water. So we have a number of electric cars in the fleet, and we're not going to convert them all to electric. We're going to hear about a backhoe today. I don't think they make electric backhoes. So it just seems like as long as it's not an expensive proposition to quantify this, but if it's going to take one FTE or something like that, or even a half FTE, I'm going to be skeptical, because I just don't think the actions that you can take from what you find are all that different than the actions you can take if you didn't know the number. So I think we chose to do a solar facility without any particular metric known or in mind, and I think we would take that make that same type of decision whether we had this tracking and the number or not. That's my thought.
I tend to think, and in many respects, both in terms of kind of state compliance as you go further into the future, and then also grant writing, having these baselines and then showing improvement and trajectory is paramount to success in acquiring funds and meeting regulatory standards. And so having that data is kind of the backup or the reality that allows you to kind of justify either compliance or kind of put forward why you're the best candidate for a grant.
Okay, that makes more sense to me than just doing it for the sake of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some level, like to your return on investment, I think that's what if you're going to spend money, it's great to feel good, but you can still lose weight without a scale, right? To your point, just keep jogging.
That is his point, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's exactly what it is, right? Just start. The important thing is that you're jogging, right? It's not the scale. But that using the scale as the metric to try to get additional funds, kind of create that snowball effect. Like, look what we've done. So, if you're divvying up that money, you can give it to us because we've already demonstrated the success. Like, that's how I've looked at it.
Yeah, this is it $10,000? This piece with Isle. I don't know if it's exactly 10 or around 10s. So it's about $10,000 to be part of this group to do this work. So I thought sounds like when the time's appropriate, I think we'll discuss in committee, maybe bring this forward to the full board for additional kind of discussion.
There was a lot of cool things within that group that weren't just the baseline. It was kind of a conglomeration of individuals in districts and kind of best management practices, best technology, and being able to kind of utilize that network to everyone's benefit. So I thought it was really cool from that
We're
perspective.
going to tap into a lot of great horsepower internationally to help develop this at a very low cost.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all I have. Any final comments, questions, direction?
Nothing? Anybody else?
I appreciate you tracking this, John.
Yeah, and just in general, I think you're doing a great job along with staff. I think you guys are really hearing good things about what's going on with STPUD, and just continue to good work, I guess.
Glad to hear it. Thank you. So does that cover my requested board action? There's no actual vote?
Yeah, I think that was
Received
a good
direction.
overview and gave the board a good summary of where you're at, and obviously there is a closed session. We'll gather any other comments from that and provide feedback for you.
Sounds good, and I appreciate the support and the partnership with the board.
So, Julie, are you going to do 6C?
I will tee it up
You tee it up.
and then come back. So the requested action today, it's going to be a multi-part deal, just like we did, it was almost a year ago to the day that we were here last to talk about flash flooding in Alpine County as a result of all the fire impacts on the slopes around the Diamond Valley Ranch. So I'm going to actually ask Trevor and Jason to come up and show you what they are seeing out at Diamond Valley as a result of the rainstorm yesterday afternoon. And then they are still monitoring kind of what's going on in today's forecast and in the coming weeks as this kind of system perpetuates. So if you guys are ready, Trevor and Jason?
This is good timing. We had you on the agenda a week ago for this update.
Do you want why we're on the agenda? Or
Just probably stay on this item, just the emergency item at this point.
I was going to pull up a quick map and some photos.
We have a more expansive, broader DVR update coming up a little later under staff reports.
So real briefly, I'm Trevor Coolidge, senior engineer, and Jason Glaze is our acting supervisor at Diamond Valley Ranch since Jim Hilton's retirement. So we just wanted to provide a quick review. We'll come back to these maps. But as you're familiar, we experienced a loss of about 650 acres of district-owned property as a result of the Tamarack fire. Our district-owned property is within the blue polygon. And you can see one of the challenges is the land outside of that is either privately owned or is Bureau of Land Management land. We operate on a large area of BLM land. Like for example, Harvey Place is in a right-of-way or lease agreement with BLM. So there's this mosaic of properties that we'll talk about. But the biggest thing is we've got a lot of burned upslope land. And yesterday afternoon, about 3 or 4 o'clock, there was a flood watch issued, debris watch issued. The nearest weather station to the north of the ranch recorded about 1.2 inches of rain in an hour yesterday afternoon. I haven't checked our gauge yet. We're worried about that this afternoon as well. But we previously come before you for an emergency action related to Diamond Ditch late last August after we experienced a number of debris flows off these BLM lands and our lands. So we had a similar situation occur yesterday, only this time Dressler Ditch was the hardest hit. This is a picture of Dressler Ditch. I'm going to go back to the overview just to give you a feel for where we are. Does my cursor show up at all? So Dressler Ditch is the southernmost light blue water feature. There you can see it's labeled Upper Dressler Ditch. And so that receives flow from Summit Lake, which is just to the south out of this graphic. And that facility conveys water to Indian Creek Reservoir. And then Diamond Ditch is in the upper right quadrant, leaving Harvey Place. We didn't have any issues with Diamond Ditch with this storm. We think that the filter fence that we used was really effective in slowing things down. We also saw that the storm was a lot more localized to the southwest area of our property. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to go through quickly a number of photos. Feel free if you have questions. But this is Dressler Ditch. This is an example of burn material that's come into the ditch along with silt and sediment. Pretty good-sized log crossing it there that floated in. A number of roads are impassable with trucks right now. Those tracks are from a side-by-side, or maybe Jason really got after it, a big truck. This is Dressler Ditch. That is a submerged 60-inch pipe. So that's where we do have a pipe section, but it's pretty backed up and pretty clogged up. Dressler Ditch's open section is approximately 7,000 feet, so just under a mile and a half. This is a mixer box just below Summit Lake, so the drainage normally comes into this, gets caught, and gets conveyed on Dressler Ditch. Dressler Ditch is about 6 feet deep, and it's on the right half of this picture. So the side-by-side is on the road, the ditch is to the right. So just, you can drive on it right now. It's hard to see for scale, but that's a 2-foot high rock. Took both of us to move it out of the road, so the water is moving a lot of material. And this is the end of Dressler Ditch where it goes into the BLM campground. A couple of photos of the campground as well. But, fortunately, that water screen prevented that pipe from clogging. We were able to look behind it, so that conveyance out to Indian Creek Reservoir is not blocked. This is looking at the spillway. We're looking down at the end of Dressler Ditch, so this is where everything overflowed. Fair bit of damage and erosion to the bottom of the spillway. So these are kind of what you're seeing there. We have blocked up ditches, we've got some road obstructions, we have clogged culverts, and we have some erosion of our facilities. This is where it came through the campground. Just for scale, you can see that it was flowing over the top of that picnic table. I also thought it was ironic, the sticker they have on their bear boxes. Again, blocked roads. This is by Harvey Pasture, completely impassable. The 2 stakes that you see on either side of the road, that represents a culvert. We probably have about a dozen culverts, if not more, in this condition. And again, just significant rock flows, debris flows. So I don't know if Jason wants to talk about it, but the guys right now, they're taking care of some of these most critical things. Drill and dust, and we're just getting after getting this tree pulled out of part of the channel so that when that's flowing, it doesn't become a bigger issue. One of our biggest fears is that in these channels, if there's a blockage or obstruction, it can cause the flow to leave the channel and take out the road and potentially have a blowout, which I think we had behind the hotel at the Snowshoe Thompson in 2007-ish.
2007, 2008.
Yeah. So Jason's guys are doing a great job of getting these critical things done, clearing the access road into the shop, getting rid of these major blockages that could become something bigger, but it's kind of a tough situation out there. We thought you might be curious about, okay, what could we have done or what are we proposing to do moving forward? This is looking at the upslope of the BLM campground as an example of trees felled parallel to the slope or perpendicular to the slope, and just looking at, okay, how did those hold up? We also have a number of those on our property. This is just above the shop facility, and you can see that due to the volume of rain, even these logs were getting overtopped. So that's probably about a 24-inch diameter log, and you can see that we've still got a very
Imagine if they weren't there.
yeah. So we did want to look at that, and then jumping over to Diamond Ditch, which is flowing like chocolate milk right now. So this is our recycled water going to the ranchers that we're taking offline when the storm event comes and putting back online. This was one of the channels that hit us pretty hard last time, and you can see kind of the accumulated sediment behind this filter fence. That's about 2 feet tall, but it didn't get into the ditch. So those kind of temporary measures really worked well. This is pretty loaded. I don't know how it'll do in the next storm, but those features that we put in last fall were effective. I think that was what I had for photos. I'm just going to rest on a map image just in case locations come up. So I believe what we're asking for is some of these items we would like to use contractors to remedy. We would like to complete that work quickly, sooner rather than later. Part of it is also that we can't draw Chris's crews right now because they're in the middle of field season. We looked at, okay, could we use internal crews? What would that take? How much equipment rental would we need? But we're just feeling like it's too big of a job right now. Like, we really need a skilled grader operator for a lot of this, and it'll make things go a lot faster than we could complete it. So we're asking for an emergency declaration, which will let us expedite our contracting methods and basically shortlist, get quotes, and move forward with implementing repairs to either regain access or stabilize features.
Thanks. Yeah, so clearly from this photo, there's a lot more work than can be managed with a small 3-person crew up in Diamond Valley Ranch. And as Trevor mentioned, it's the peak of construction season right now. It's the peak of leak season. All of our crews in the basin are tied up doing important district business. So in order to allow us to go ahead and identify contractors to help us with this work, we would like the board to declare an emergency. I have one drafted from a year ago. And if you are supportive of that request, I'll go ahead and read to you the resolution that would go along with it, since you weren't presented, it wasn't presented to you beforehand. And then we can step through the 6 action items that go along with the declaration of the emergency. Any questions?
Yeah, this is maybe for Jason, just in terms of our capacity with your small crew versus what we bring in for contractors. Like, do you have a pretty good idea of what you guys could be doing as compared to a contractor, or you have a good idea of what's going on there?
I can look back at November when we did an in-house cleaning with a excavator rental. Back in November, we had, I want to say, probably about half of the upper Dressler ditch that was silted in with mud and rock from the rain event that we had in November. We worked for 11 days straight to get that completed before the Thanksgiving holiday. And so that was a very small amount of work that we got completed in comparison to what we need to get done this time. So taking into consideration what we have coming up with our 3rd hay cutting, our focus that we have in place of trying to get a punch list of items done, maintenance items that were put at the request of us by a dam inspector for both Indian Creek and Harvey Place reservoirs. It would be difficult to really sit here and tell you guys that we could get it done within a reasonable amount of time.
I guess I was just thinking of some fraction of the work, just based on your observations. Is there something that we can take on now versus waiting around?
Well, we're currently taking on what we can safely take on, given the weather that's supposed to be coming in. We're working on trying to get some clearing out of some of the ditches. We're working on opening up roads for access in case we do have to have somebody get back in there with some equipment right away if there's an urgent matter that comes up. But in terms of looking at this, say next week, we can definitely get in there and put in some effort to help this effort along, right? And in comparison to just standing back and watching somebody else do it, we can definitely be part of the effort to get this cleaned up. We've done it before, and we can definitely do it again. But again, it would just be waiting to see who's available, what kind of help we can get, what kind of time frame they put forth as far as an estimate to get the job done, what kind of equipment they would be bringing in, and then we could kind of figure out where we fit into that puzzle.
Okay.
We did reach out to OES, Emergency Services, for the state this morning. We're hoping that Allen County declares an emergency over this, which would then make us eligible for funding for this cleanup work. I believe you've heard of the Caldor fire, because the debris flow was deemed not to be part of the Caldor fire emergency because it was a rain event and not a fire event that caused the debris flows, in their opinion, wasn't eligible. So we're hoping this time the storm event, because Markleeville got hit pretty hard, we're hoping that's enough to trigger Alpine County to declare an emergency.
Right, because Alpine County did not declare a separate emergency for last year's rain event that caused all that damage. So since this one is kind of a standalone thing.
Markleeville is currently working with quite a mess up there since yesterday. 89 is closed from Turtle Rock Park into Markleeville, and the only way in and out of Markleeville is over Monitor Pass right now. So Alpine Sheriff's Department is working with the Director of Caltrans to keep everybody out that doesn't belong and help the people that are there get in and out safely if they need to leave their home to get out for any kind of other business. So they got a large mess that we're trying to fix up right now. And we got more rain forecast for this afternoon. And then tomorrow there's no more flash flood warning, but on the NOAA forecast, they're still forecasting for heavy rain. So might be some more negative impacts from all of this by the end of the day tomorrow.
I guess as you're going, I guess as we bring contractors on, is there any opportunity for them to help to mitigate future? It seems like this event probably revealed some weak points and areas and opportunities for sediment control and things like that. So is that going to be part of the overall kind of?
I wasn't sure if we should touch on that now or later, but we're working with OES for funding for stabilization measures.
Okay.
And we also have a large FEMA application. It looks like we'll be successful. It has a 25% match that includes all of our work area, so 640 acres or so of treatment. So we are looking at that going forward. The challenge we're running into is with this mosaic of property. So the Diamond Ditch, for example, goes across our lands, across BLM, our lands at the end, and then it's also a facility that we actually lease. And so FEMA did not want to fund, say, piping that facility because they want to spend monies on land that we don't own, which is spending really hard to navigate. So that's making these projects, because they're so long in nature, they don't want us to piecemeal just the portions that are on our property. So we're really having a hard time navigating.
Is BLM at the table, or are they on the
We met
talking with them, or?
following the prior storm event. Jason's providing photos of the campground just so they can look at it as well. But they did some upland seeding by helicopter, obviously more larger improvements gradient. That's been our big challenge, is that we're not able to spend some monies on sorts of fun stuff.
I mean, I guess the point is really what are they doing to kind of help mitigate their impact on our property? I guess that's my.
So I'm not saying sufficient, but what they've done so far is to help seed by helicopter.
Which didn't seem to work very well.
I wouldn't think a lot of that got washed away.
Yeah.
And it seems like we are being left to fend for ourselves. And the work that we did last year above Diamond Ditch to really protect ourselves looks like it is very effective. But so those silt fences at the bottom of the drainages were kind of targeted, right? It wasn't the entire length. What I'm understanding from the rest of the ditch is that the entire length is basically sliding into the studio.
And the other thing is looking at the silt fence is how much is coming on.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is we need to get BLM engaged on this in a much bigger way, and I guess for us to try to avoid these types of costs into the future, then we need to have them at the table, and we need to make sure they're doing the right thing and working with us on that stuff. So.
We're feeling like a really big scale, we need watershed stabilization, and we'd really like to see these facilities piped because we have a top section.
I think as you heard the report on Diamond Valley Ranch later, and your comment on the need to engage BLM, I feel like that's all part of a really big picture for that facility, probably beyond this individual emergency.
So what do you need from us?
Emergency declaration.
Yeah, I need you to listen to a really long resolution. Any other questions before I kind of dive in and read you what I'm asking you to approve? Okay. Whereas the South Tahoe Public Utility District is engaged in the collection, treatment, export, and distribution of recycled water, and whereas the district exports recycled water from the Lake Tahoe Basin to the district's Diamond Valley Ranch in Alpine County, California, where the district stores recycled water in its Harvey Place Reservoir, delivers recycled water to ranchers for irrigation through the Diamond Valley Ditch, grazes cattle, operates 2 reservoirs, and grows alfalfa, collectively the Diamond Valley Ranch facilities. And whereas on July 4th, 2021, the Tamarack Fire broke out in Alpine County and burned over 68,000 acres, including portions of the Diamond Valley Ranch, and whereas on July 23rd, 2021, Governor Newsom proclaimed a state of emergency as a result to the widespread destruction of the Tamarack Fire, and whereas on August 4th, 2022, a severe rain event and microburst rain event occurred in Alpine County that caused a debris flow that washed mud, rocks, and debris from the fire-scorched and denuded hills, further compounding the damage caused by the Tamarack Fire. And whereas the Tamarack Fire and rain event combined to cause extensive damage to Diamond Valley Ranch facilities, including but not limited to the following damage: damaged roads, debris accumulation in the freshwater ditches, restricting flows, and further damage yet to be determined. Whereas it is critical that the district repair the damage to the Diamond Valley Ranch facilities as soon as possible in order to restore the district's critical operations, and whereas the preparation of bidding documents and advertising for competitive bids in accordance with the California Public Contracting Code and the district's purchasing requirements would take several weeks to complete, and during such time, the Diamond Valley Ranch facilities would remain totally or partially impacted. And whereas in accordance with Public Contracting Code Section 22050, substantial evidence has been presented to the district which demonstrates immediate action is necessary to address this loss and impairment to repair the Diamond Valley Ranch facilities and enter into agreements with consultants and contractors to design and perform such repair to the Diamond Valley Ranch facilities in order to restore critical operations, all of which will not permit a delay resulting from competitive solicitation for bids or compliance with the district's purchasing requirements, and this action is necessary to respond to the emergency. And whereas emergency projects are exempt from the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15301 relating to existing facilities. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. The damage to the Diamond Valley Ranch facilities is a sudden and unexpected occurrence that poses a clear and imminent danger, which could lead to the loss or impairment of life, health, property, and essential services, and is therefore an emergency pursuant to Section 1102 of the California Public Contract Code. 2, immediate action directly related to the emergency, including repair, restoration, and other action to procure the necessary equipment, services, and supplies, is necessary to respond to the emergency, which will not permit a delay resulting from competitive solicitation for bids or compliance with the district's purchasing requirements, and this action is necessary to respond to the emergency. 3, the general manager of the district is hereby authorized and directed to order any action necessary and appropriate to respond to the emergency, including repair, restoration, replacement, and the procurement of any necessary equipment, services, and supplies without giving notice for competitive bids to let contracts. 4, emergency repairs related to the repair, restoration, replacement of Diamond Valley Ranch facilities is necessary to restore recycled water activities and mitigate the emergency, are thus exempt from the requirements of CEQA pursuant to CEQA Public Resource Code sections 21080B2 and 4. 5, file a CEQA notice of exemption. 6, approve expenditures necessary to commence emergency repairs to the Diamond Valley Ranch facilities in an amount not to exceed $300,000. This resolution shall take effect immediately. Finally, we, the undersigned, do hereby certify that the above and foregoing resolution was duly adopted and passed by the Board of Directors of the South Tahoe Public Utility District at a regularly scheduled meeting held on the 4th day of August 2022.
Right.
I missed the beginning. Would you give that to me just one more time?
Yeah, just start over.
Julie, on the second whereas, let's also add in that the district operates freshwater ditches.
I think you guys have clearly outlined the need to do something quickly. That would be the mitigation of all this mud and muck that's going into your ditches and getting in the way. But the remediation, which is probably going to take longer, right? Like to develop a plan to keep this from happening year after year. Is that technically an emergency? I'm just asking. I'm not trying to throw a wrench into this whole thing. I'm just wondering.
No, the part that Trevor was alluding to where we have applied for funding to offset the stabilization of the lands both on and off our properties above, right? That's all outside the emergency.
Correct. And so we have an application in with FEMA that it appears like it's going to be approved. I think it's for $2.5 million.
Yeah.
And that includes a whole sequence of getting a consultant on board, getting recommendations cooked up.
Okay, that makes more sense now that I think of it that way.
And then I don't think it'll be next summer, probably the following summer. So that is kind of a longer run. And then the other element of what you asked is what, and Shane brought up, is what are we going to do with PLM? And that's something we really are going to start pushing forward. We also will be entering into negotiations about what's going to happen with the reservoir, so that there's a lot there with PLM that needs to work on.
So it seems like the work that we're talking about that we're going to be doing in short order under the emergency is going to be limited to the things that are required to restore operation of the facility.
Fix what happened.
On the ranch.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Clean up roads.
Repairing damaged roads, damaged culverts, clearing ditches, and maybe some like isolated erosion control kind of repairs, but not like the whole hillside.
Okay.
And when does Dressler need to be operational?
When do we need to get water?
So we operate that ditch April 1st through June 30th under the guise of adding water to Indian Creek Reservoir, utilizing our water rights of 555 acre feet. Now the rest of the year, in the dry months, it's not that big of a deal, but getting close to getting into the wet season, especially when you're looking at 30 to 45 days of work to get this fixed, we utilize that ditch throughout the wet months to help alleviate excess heavy flows coming down Indian Creek that might otherwise make its way down to other neighboring properties that could inundate their property. So if we have flood events, we can mitigate some of that water going down Indian Creek by letting some of it go down the upper Dressler ditch and Harvey Channel. So
The other comment on Dressler is, and why it's such a headache, is it was designed to intercept all these flows in order to try to keep Harvey Place as dry as possible for storing our wastewater. And so the goal of this, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, which is intercept all this runoff. But in the fire scenario,
So if you leave it full of debris, what happens is the water comes down the hillside, runs across the ditch, across the road, and ends up in Harvey Place Reservoir. So
Okay. As soon as possible. Yeah, it sounds bad.
yeah, and filling Harvey Place Reservoir with sediment.
And we also
it can't
have
be caught by the ditch.
flow through or pass through water rights for what normally goes to Mud Lake all through the winter. And that's supposed to be, as long as you store the water, that's our refresh. That hasn't been happening due to scarcity, but that's the other time that this facility is used. So in theory, it helps the water quality of the reservoir.
Okay, thank you.
So moved.
Julie, in the
You're not about that easy.
in the whereas list there, there was one that described the fire that it on August 4th, or it was July of last year, it burned the property. Can we also say it burned X percentage of the watershed affecting our property?
Probably could get that number now.
Because that's the bigger problem that we have. It's not what burned on our property. It's the entire watershed burned, and that's where all this stuff's coming from. Then the other thing I think
Say over 68,000 acres in Alpine County were burned, but I don't know what portion of our watershed.
Could we just say including the majority?
Yeah, I think if you were talking to FEMA, if you said, hey, 90% of the watershed burned, and that's causing this thing. I think that would, for watershed managers, they would understand that better. And then you referred to a specific day of flooding that was yesterday. Are we going to be hamstrung by this if it rains again today and the day after that? Does it need to be a little bit more open-ended?
When we continue, can't we add? So, I mean, this does refer specifically to the rain event of yesterday. But if we have another one today and over the course of the next couple of weeks, as we continue the emergency, can additional damage from rain events that haven't happened yet be rolled into this emergency?
Well, let's clarify that in the resolution, that it's meant to cover the one that occurred and future ones that, until they,
Okay.
the fixes can be put in place to restore it.
Trevor's suggestion was, instead of saying whereas on August 4th, we say whereas beginning on August 4th, severe rain events.
You can say have occurred and will likely continue to occur in the immediate future.
That's all I had.
Getting off that easy.
And with those, yeah, if you can just fill in that blank, I think I can certainly, you know,
I think I captured it.
move forward with this thing. Yeah. So,
I have 6.
Mr. Cefalu, I think, moved it, and I'll second.
I need to read
As
you the 6
amended.
actions, I'm pretty sure.
As amended.
The resolution is going to be approved as part of the entire action that she's going to be requesting.
Yeah.
So you won't approve it individually.
Yeah, so
Oh.
just one more paragraph for you guys to suffer through. So I am requesting that the board authorize staff to determine an emergency exists as defined in section 1102 of the Public Contract Code. Determine substantial evidence has been presented to authorize an exception be made pursuant to section 22050 of the Public Contract Code, that this emergency will not permit a delay resulting from a competitive solicitation for bids and compliance with the district's purchasing requirements, and that this action is necessary to respond to the emergency. That the board adopt resolution 3230-22, delegating authority to the general manager to order any action necessary to respond to this emergency. That the board determine this project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Public Resources Code section 21808B2 and 4, and that the board authorize filing notice of an exemption, and that the board approve expenditures necessary to start emergency repairs up to $300,000. Now,
So moved.
excellent,
Second.
thank you.
Have a motion.
That seemed longer than a paragraph, though.
Let's see if we can get a vote. Oh, hang on a second, I gotta take this off. And our motion passes unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen.
We'll be seeing you soon.
Oh, right.
Going to 7A?
Yep.
Will recruit from 7A.
So standing in ad hoc committees and liaison reports, 7A, Tahoe Keys Ad Hoc Committee Update.
Yeah, you want to go first?
Go for it.
So Shane and I just met right before this for a couple hours with members of the Tahoe Keys. Are they aboard?
So it was the general manager, the acting general manager, and 2 board members. So it's
Joby
calling it a
Cefalu.
3x3.
Yeah, Joby Cefalu and Ken
Silvera?
Silvera. It was very, very positive, very cordial conversation. Kind of at the onset, it was just, an agreement that this had to be beneficial to, both parties. No subsidies for, the Keys, via STPUDs, current ratepayers, and, the process, and really, what was, our board's expectation of this process, what was their board's expectation of this process. We got into a bit of the vote and kind of the internal workings of the Keys. John gave a great description of STPUDs, primarily water system, and especially how it would relate to the Keys. We touched on some things, again, really that what was important to us was, a really beneficial process that was mutually beneficial. I reiterated some of the points that I'd raised in this forum in regard to conservation and other items as well. And so I don't know if there's anybody you want to add.
Yeah, sure. Just to kind of a bit more background on this. This is really related to the, I guess, recently completed work on understanding what it would take for STPUD to provide water to the Keys, and basically the Keys, their board working through thinking on what is the Keys' future in terms of who manages water for their constituents. And basically they've came to us, they've gone through, they've identified, I guess, 5 different organizations that could theoretically take over the providing water to the Keys, and they've identified the STPUD as being probably the best choice for them. And that really this meeting was an introductory meeting to really start having those conversations about what the expectations were for both sides in terms of what we don't really know what the cost might be or what the condition of their system is, and we did discuss a phase 3 of some work to better understand what are the cost consequences and the condition of the system. So overall, it was I would say I would characterize it more as an introductory and kind of feeling out whether STPUD would have the interest in pursuing taking over the providing water to the Keys constituents. And so, and again, John provided a nice, thorough background on our system to their board members and understanding kind of what our capacities were to do this. And I think overall, at this point, very preliminary. We're planning on meeting probably monthly, maybe over the next 24 months, as I understand from some of Gary's estimates in terms of time, working through what a potential solution would be for the Tahoe Keys providing water to the Tahoe Keys residents. You want to add anything else, John?
Sounds good. Yeah, I think some next steps, we talk about developing some talking points for both parties, and taking a look at phase 3 of the Corolla work and getting more clarity on that and how that would be funded. Yeah, good startup meeting, looking for a win-win solution. We're looking for our ratepayers will not be funding any part of this process. And I think we reflected that the board is interested in this process as far as it'll be a benefit to the community and actually a benefit to our own ratepayers.
Is Corolla doing an assessment on the condition of the water lines out there?
That's phase 3. That's the next phase coming up.
That'll be the one that's very illuminating.
It'll be
Yeah, the Swiss cheese.
That one will tell the whole story.
That, as well as some dollar numbers, getting an idea what the impact might be to their own constituents. So.
It'll take a long time.
Peterson back in?
I was just going to say, should we invite Dave back in?
We could just not and say we forgot him for a while.
Yeah.
Just for fun. He doesn't want to sit there.
Welcome back.
Didn't happen. It's been comfortable.
Board member report? Mr. Exline, anything?
Power nap. Okay, so where are we? Oh, board member? None.
I can't think of anything.
Nothing from me. What about you?
Nothing.
Okay.
Well, I guess what I just say I'll be out the next board meeting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're all together.
All right.
El Dorado Water Agency Purveyor report.
Meeting is next Wednesday, so nothing to report.
I did talk to Ken a couple times yesterday. We're looking ahead to probably have their board meeting here on October 12th.
Okay, so we got some staff and attorney reports. We have Mr. RC, Indian Creek Reservoir.
Alpine County did not break this setup here. I do have a PowerPoint presentation, but I don't see anything up there. No, we're good. All right. So, good afternoon, board members. As you know, my name is Dan Arce, and I have been tasked today by our manager, John Teal, to give you an update on a couple of different topics. The first one is Indian Creek Reservoir. Yes, please come.
Seen a millennial.
That didn't look good.
Security alert. I'm not an expert on these things, Dave, but. There you go. Yeah, sort of. Okay, you all see that? Great. So I will be as brief as I can. Please feel free to interrupt me with any questions. I'm going to stick to topic, which is the cyanobacteria topic, problem at Indian Creek Reservoir. As you know, and you see in a map there, Indian Creek Reservoir is where the district used to export its treated effluent until 1982. It has since been managed by us and monitored by us. By us, I mean mainly the lab. The lab has been going there monthly and collecting samples for profiling different nutrients at different depths as part of our permit and our TMDL limits. Since, part of these tests used to be to collect water and look at it through a microscope. We had a technician who'd had training on this, and she would identify some of the cyanobacteria that might be present. We would never worry about toxins or anything in this nature. I'm going to start in 2019, which is when we first began to actually look at the cyanotoxins and see it as a problem, mostly at the recommendation of the Water Board. So here you see a map of ICR. This is the boat we take monthly, not the worst place in the world to spend a workday. And here is what it looks like when we have what is called a harmful algal bloom. Now, I'm going to throw these words at you, but I'm going to be consistent in calling them cyanobacteria. It is the best way to understand them. For the longest time, they were called blue-green algae. They are not a plant. They're not algae. They are bacteria. And to me, it makes more sense a little bit to understand their behavior, how it is they suddenly show up, how it is that they remain dormant. And people often ask me, what happened? What's different? Why did they just show up? Well, I think of them as bacteria. It is like an infection. You know, they might lie dormant. They might be transmitted by boats or whatever else. They go from reservoir to reservoir, and suddenly the conditions are there, and they just bloom. This problem with cyanobacteria has, you can't go on the news now and not see an article somewhere as water supplies being endangered and so forth. It's a worldwide problem. In fact, in the little bit of reading I did, it is a big problem in China because so much of their drinking water comes from surface waters that are absolutely infected with this cyanobacteria, and they don't have as regimented a testing program as we do. And so apparently there's a lot of problems there. For us, this is a recreational body of water, so it is not as crucial as worrying about toxins in the drinking water. This is what it normally looks like. Here I have a little film of how we are asked to identify them. Is it playing? I guess not. Well, it's not going to show the little film. Oh, here we go. You see that when you pick them up, they don't look like plants. It's like a mucus. You're supposed to be able to break them apart in your hand, and if they form a little bit of string of material, you know they are plants, and they're not cyanobacteria. That's actually Kevin's hand, if you want a size comparison or anything. And this would have been in May. I won't have too many things for you to read, but this is the chart that we use for the different cyanobacteria toxins and where we are supposed to actually give people warning, a caution, a warning, or a danger sign. The main toxin that we find at Indian Creek Reservoir is this one, called total microcystins, which is a family of toxins. There are several of them. We add them together, and depending on how concentrated they are, we know where we are in that level. There you see micrograms per liter as the units. That is equivalent to parts per billion. Just to give you an idea, when we're talking about iron, for instance, the danger was 300 parts per billion. Here we're looking at 0.8. So clearly a poison. Here are the sites on Indian Creek Reservoir that we began to sample in 2019. We labeled them very creatively, ICR CB 01, 02, 03, and 04. There in 2019, you see that we had toxin levels above 0.8. The yellow ones would mean that we had to have a caution sign. The orange means we had to have a warning sign. The caution sign looks like this, basically telling people not to drink the water, as if that were needed. I think I would rather drink final effluent than Indian Creek most days. But here is what the warning sign looks like. You're actually not supposed to swim anymore. You're supposed to stay away from the water.
This is on auto, but so I'll catch up. You can still eat the fish. You just have to clean it really well. And dogs are actually the biggest problem because dogs are so willing to drink poison water. So these are the signs that we had to put around Indian Creek Reservoir starting 2019. And then we begun to sample more consistently. The problem would simply not go away. This is what it looked like at the time. This is November. Notice that on some months we only sample one site. It is a very expensive test, and I'll mention a little bit on the funding at the end of this presentation. And this is December of 2019. The problem simply did not go away. We wanted to go over the new year, not having warning signs, not having caution signs, but we couldn't do it. In order to get these samples, we actually had to break through the ice, and we saw no signs of HAB whatsoever, which let us know that the poison can remain long after any sign, any visual sign could show up. 2020, we had a green. We actually had one part be okay. The water board and also our own internal techs recommended that we should not have inconsistent signs, that we'd always go with the harshest sign and put it all over the place. So we couldn't even, at 2020, August 2020, we were never actually able to remove the signs completely. Here you have ICBC. Look at the poison there. It's at 20 parts per billion. It is just under where it becomes actually dangerous, and that's what the water looked like. You might dip your toe in there. You might let your dog drink that water. The toxin remains long after the problem goes away. The apparent problem. We have 2020 here, and for once in 2020, we had all, the one test be okay, and another one. The water board recommends 2 consecutive tests before we can remove any signage. So we were able to go into the winter without signs. And then 2021, just walking you through it, here's another poisoned part of the reservoir. Again, it does not at all look it. And we are at 2022 now. This is April. You see that we had some toxins. We had 11 over there. By the way, this side here on the left is where the campground used to be. You say used to be, the Tamarack fire just completely took it out. But that was where the most recreation used to happen in ICR CBO3. And then we had some danger there. We had internal meetings here, and Alpine County decided to open the floodgates, and we put a whole bunch of water in Indian Creek, and the problem went away for a single month. And then it looked like this. Again, looks nice enough. When we went back in June, we finally hit our first red, our first number over 20, which was there at the southern end. And we had to have a danger sign all around the reservoir, which basically tells people, stay away from here. Do not recreate in this body of water. It's a fairly scary sign, and because of that one place, we had to have it around the whole reservoir, even though we did not detect it around the whole reservoir. This is a bacterial problem, so it can definitely travel. The wind takes it and so forth, so I can understand the rationale. This is what it looked like when we got that danger sign. I don't know how many of you would need a sign to tell you not to swim there, but there it is. This is the last set of samples we took, which was on Bastille Day on July 14th. And the very same site that was danger now was much, much lower. This is how quickly it can come back and forth. We were able to downgrade our signs just thanks to the water board saying, yeah, that was a one-off. We expect to go there in a couple of weeks. And, the goal is always to sample it enough until we can have the problem go away. It is a very expensive test. The water board has decided to cover much of the cost during the summer. And we just had a grant, which hasn't gone through from the BLM as well. They had, I think, $14,000 worth of money to monitor harmful algal blooms, and they decided that STPUD was already doing the work. So they're paying the lab that does the test for us to send them our samples and do the test. They run about $650 per sampling episode. They have to count the bacteria and so forth. As far as we're just looking, is there anything we could do? There is very little as far as mitigation. I mean, when one reads it, you have physical things you can do, you have biological things you can do, and chemical, and they very much say, do not begin to go down the biological and chemical side unless you really need to for drinking water purposes. Physical things you can do, the main thing they recommend is that the water be stirred, that the bottom sediments be brought up, and that the oxygen and temperatures be made equilibrated throughout the reservoir. We already do this, thankfully. We have an expensive system to revolve the water around. This is so to meet our dissolved oxygen requirements. And I know that our guys are on it. I mean, there was a bunch of emails just this last week. I mean, as soon as it goes down, technicians are over there trying to get it fixed. So I don't know how bad the problem would be if we did not have that. I imagine a lot worse. I know that there are reservoirs or lakes in Alpine County that, that are in danger throughout the summer. Other physical changes one can make, one can put shade in different places. One cannot build dams where there's wind. ICR has very variable winds. I mean, wherever we go, in the northern, southern end, and the west, we have found this problem. As far as chemicals and biologicals, you can add invasive species. You can also put hydrogen peroxide in the water. You can do these sorts of things. I don't think we're about to go down that road of actually treating any of the water, unless directed to do so. So we are right now just monitoring and crossing our fingers. The one thing that did seem to make a difference was to fill it up with water, and that made the problem go away for a month. So I don't know if that's really a long-term solution. That's it. Any questions?
Campground still closed? Is it?
My understanding is that it's still closed. The bathrooms are completely destroyed and burned.
Mm-hmm.
The gate is locked and quite locked. I think the chains had to be broken a couple of times for us to access it. They really don't want people going there, and there's constant construction. I don't know what the future plans are. Perhaps, Jason, you do.
Yeah, I was talking to the park ranger, Daniel Dole, from the Carson City Field Office about a month ago, and BLM is very much all in on getting that campground back opened up, but they said it's going to be at least 2 years before it's opened up. They have, as you can imagine, forestation projects they're working on, the restroom facilities. They're having issues working with Liberty Utilities to get power back there. A lot of transformers got burned up. So
They still have drinking water, I understand, right? Their well is still working.
They were working on putting in and finishing a brand new water system right when the fire team burned everything up. So it's not finalized, but it's close. It was close.
And he mentions Mr. Daniel Dole. The emails I sent regarding these results have a larger and larger distribution list all the time. There are many, many people interested in this, from reporters. The water board is always on top of it. They actually have a full-time person working, on Highway 50, Sabrina, that just takes care of this and nothing else. The BLM and so forth. So yeah, this is, I'm sure, only going to become a hotter topic, and I'm sure this is probably going to become a bigger problem in California. So
I guess my question is really on the why are we monitoring it? It sounds to me like it's more like BLM that manages the campground and the area, and so I'm just curious, why are we doing the monitoring?
I will demur this question to perhaps someone who knows better what the mandates are. We in the lab had been monitoring Onion Creek Reservoir. We understand as part of the contract, we had to show that we were meeting TMDL requirements for phosphorus, for chlorophyll, and for dissolved oxygen. We had this whole system. As far as the harmful algal blooms, I think we are monitoring because it's a recreational area and we are responsible for it, at least for a few more months. We've always monitored for cyanobacteria. It was part of our permit. We never monitored for toxins before, but it seemed, it would be neglectful not to do so if one is finding the cyanobacteria, and it's the toxins that people care about. So I'm not 100% sure.
Some legacy agreement that we were in when we, I guess, were previously, putting our effluent in there. Is this kind of still lingering? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we have contracts with BLM and the state. The state did the funding, and the district, once we switched over to Harvey Place, was required to continue to operate that reservoir as a freshwater fishery. And several years ago, we had water going in it, but we also transferred more water rights to be used in that Indian Creek in order to improve the quality. And so the state board and the regional board put us under a TMDL for the dissolved oxygen levels and stuff that was required in that reservoir. We are currently looking at, we're working with district staff to look at those contracts and develop a strategy on how we're going to move forward in the future, because depending on the concurrence of certain events when the reservoir was constructed, those contracts are going to be up here probably, could be as early as October of this year, most likely a year or so after that, depending when some improvements were completed. So we are looking at this to see and how we might want to proceed forward in the future with, and probably will need to have some discussions with particularly BLM.
Who owns the reservoir? Who owns the dam?
We do.
BLM, I understand. We do?
We do.
We do.
We own both dams.
And do we use the storage in Indian Valley for any particular reason? I mean, we don't draw it down, or
No, it's simply maintained as a freshwater fishery.
so is there anything barring us from removing the dam?
The contracts that we are in right now. That's what we're looking at and discussing with district staff, our current and future obligations, and what options we have to, whether we continue to operate it, whether we walk away from it, whether we remove it, who's got interests. I mean, BLM is interested in, obviously because of the campground. That's one of their, I'll say, star campgrounds that has been. They've been, the district was originally going to build the improvements with the grant from the state. BLM took over that responsibility and actually built the campground and operated. And so other than that, we just need to get our arms around those options and bring those to the board to determine what we might want to do in the future.
So BLM owns the land, we own the dam.
Yes, we have permits to have the facilities on BLM land.
Okay.
But but we do own and operate the dams on both reservoirs.
And that is a question I've had to not been able to answer. You know, when people say, "Okay, what do you plan to do next year? What is the long-term plan?" I have to say, we don't know yet.
Just to add on to what Gary mentioned, so when we constructed the dam, Harvey Place, we were able to receive funding from the state called Davis-Rutsky Act, and that act is for funding recreational facilities. So I believe it actually reimbursed our project for the most part, and that obligated us to operate Indian Creek Reservoir through 2022. So it's coming up right now, and then we're also a party to that. BLM operated that facility for us, and that agreement comes due in 2024. And that also includes Alpine County. So it's a very complex series of agreements, but the funding was a big driver, and I believe it was also considered mitigation at the time for the construction of Harvey Place. So in exchange for constructing Harvey Place, we also continue to operate Indian Creek Reservoir as a recreational water.
Okay. We move on, apparently.
I think Chris is going to join you.
Chris? Yeah, I mean, I'm glad he's here. There'll be questions that so we move on to the Red Lake iron problem in the drinking water, something that I know that I mentioned to you in the past, and it's been brewing since March. And so I just wanted to bring you up to date of where we are on that. And you know, to Board Member Romso's point, you know, what do we want to be doing with this in the future? I'm going to concentrate on Red Lake for most of this. So here we have Red Lake here coated in blue. I'm not sure if you know where this street is. It's you got War and Aloha and so forth. So there is Red Lake Street. We have 5 different addresses there. 4 of them on Red Lake. And there are their iron levels. I have them in yellow because they're above 300. This is what we came to find when we first did iron testing on that street prompted to do so by customer complaints, specifically from 3381 Red Lake, a gentleman that had continuous brown water. This is something we've been dealing with since previous November, but we had been solving it by just, flushing his lines through a hydrant and then flushing his own faucet, and then eventually he'd call again. Only in March did we begin to look at iron. So there is that. After we flushed, and here are the results in April, you see that they went down quite a bit. No more yellows. We went from 300s to 40s and 90s, and we found that War Street next door was not detect, and it never really changed too much there. That looked okay. We went back in May, and you notice that there was one house there that was back at being 300. We once again flushed the lines, and this is on the 12th. The problem seems to have gone away. Now, this is low-level flushing that has been described to you. This is not just opening the hydrants full blast. It actually surprised me the first time I visited how little water was actually being flushed, but it seemed to have done the trick. So there it is on May 12th, and we once again flushed in May, and there it is in June 10th. Before we flushed, notice how some of the Red Lakes levels did go up. They were almost at 300, 200, 140, and so forth. Notice how the streets around it, Hobart, Walkup, Aloha, don't really have a problem. They never really did. This was concentrated on Aloha and Red Lake. And then we flushed the lines again and measured it again, and they had gone down a little bit. So this is after the flushing. We did it again in July. This is pre-flushing. Again, it seems to be creeping up to the 300s, 250 again, and so forth. And then after we flushed on the 17th or 16th, we went back on the 18th and noticed that they're all less than detection. So this seems to be working okay for that area for now. We are going to continue. I believe we talked about it today, and we plan on flushing again in a week from today. As long as all the staffing works. And once again, we'll sample before and we'll sample after. And I think this is going to be our pattern for the next month. Now, this is the rosy picture. There's a bit of data that I edited, which I'll have to zoom on this, but so we went to a few more sites than just that one. Let me see if I can call up 9 again. Well, you don't see them. There were occasional hits of iron in between our sampling. And when we would go back, they would go away. We're not sure what that is. I think it's just the randomness gods don't want us to have too easy a problem and just have the problem go away when we flush. We did have a couple of irons come up. We also stopped testing the hydrants because the hydrants continuously showed iron. We thought we'll test the hydrant before we flush, we'll test the hydrant after, but the hydrant always had iron. It just must be in the nature of being a hydrant, so we abandoned that. We also began to look at other neighborhoods, and that's the yellows you see over here. I do want to zoom on this because I want to perhaps scare you about where you might live. So there they are. We sampled the whole Keller Crest area, and you see there's a bunch of yellows there. This is the next area that we're concentrating on. We collected some samples earlier this week. We don't have the results yet, but it looks like it's another place where we'll have to figure out a way to flush. And it's also a place where we have continuous complaints about the quality of the drinking water. Another place that popped up in our radar screen is Donner Street. I don't know if you guys know Donner Street. This is a good way to know all the little Tahoe Street, but it's right near Terrace. We also had complaints around the Golden Bear, Prospector, Lodgepole area. You see that there wasn't much on the way of iron there. We also had complaints in Amador, Coal Creek, Alice Lake, Copper area, right up here off Pioneer Trail. You don't see the results there. They're over here to the right. But we also did not have much of a problem there. So little by little, we are finding more areas of problems, and I imagine little by little we'll institute the solution. We are aiming all of us feel like once the water enters your house, it's your water. But before it does, and I'm always fielding questions from people, and I must tell them, I wholly agree with you. Your water should never have greater iron than this. Your water should not come out dirty out of the faucet. They are almost always understanding, and they realize it's a complex system. They realize that where they live, but they definitely want a plan of action. So I'm now able to tell them, yes, we're going to start taking iron and your whole street. If the results are high enough, we are going to start flashing your lines, and we'll see if that works. If it doesn't, then we'll talk to Julie, we'll talk to Chris, and we'll see where we go with that. I know the ultimate goal would be they would want us to replace their water lines.
Are they steel water lines?
I'm not sure if we
And could it
know
be that,
what they,
like, for
the
instance,
old ones
Red Lake has more second homes that don't use a lot of water than War Road, and so the water sits there and it leaches into the water from
Yeah.
the pipe?
There's only a few homes on Red Lakes, but it looked like the majority had people in them.
Yeah.
But there's only, what, half a dozen if that?
Now, on Donner is exactly that. The problem area is this house being sold at the very end of the cul-de-sac, and when we went and sampled, there wasn't a single other resident. There's one car parked, and they didn't answer the door, but yeah, I'm not surprised. The water was warm for maybe 15 minutes of us just running at full blast. We know we're just getting the whole street flushed. People aren't often going to do that in every faucet, so it is a problem. This is quite time consuming, on the lab, and I know on Chris and so forth. So when the first problem arose, I thought, all right, we'll just blanket the town. We'll get irons everywhere, and we'll begin to see where we need to go and fix things. But we are little by little, based mostly on complaints having to do with taste and appearance, and based on finding areas with low chlorine, that we are covering some areas. We still have some to do on Norma Street at the end of South Upper Truckee, East Park. Shop Street over there near the high school has a problem. Kokanee Circle has had low chlorine sometimes, and so forth.
And to answer your question, Chris, yeah, all of these areas, so Keller Crest, Terrace and Donner, Red Lake, those are all steel. From a capital improvement, like impacts on our water line program, the Terrace and Donner lines are on our radar as part of a larger project. Red Lake, we've already talked about. That's a project that's actually in design and intended to be built in 25. This Keller Crest area, it's an entire pressure zone that is giving us problems. It's a pressure zone with a lot of dead-end lines. That seems to be a common theme here with these problems, is that it's happening on dead-end lines that are steel and low usage. But that Keller Crest area, it's not on any plan yet for replacement because they're already 6-inch lines, and our focus right now is getting all the small steel out of the system. And it hasn't had a huge leak history, and so it's not on our radar for that reason. So now what we're finding is we've got this other sort of driver for capital projects, which is these water quality problems.
What you're seeing up on Saddle and Keller, it's just a lack of use. She's ran some reports where you would think in the summer our pumps would be cycling more, being summer, we're actually cycling less.
Yeah, that's correct.
15 to
That's
10.
correct, but there may be other contributors to that as well. But
Well, yeah.
you would think it would go way up, and it's not.
What we're looking at doing too up in that area is, I'm gonna have them, overflow the tanks and drain them down a little bit more often, like once a month, the tank up there, to help keep the water fresher. It's like I said, it's just warm when it comes out. These dead-end lines are houses that people aren't even in. Nobody's in there for a month at a time or 2 months at a time, which I think is a big contributor.
Yeah, so we talked yesterday about some operational changes that'll help increase that cycle and exchange the water in an area.
We're gonna
more
concentrate on the tank.
Yeah.
Get some fresh water out there, because we've been injecting more chlorine. Keller, injecting chlorine at that point, and we started doing it, and that helped a little bit as far as our chlorine issue. But it's just lack of use. You drive around up there, there's not much landscape, and then most of the houses, everything's just shut up. It's all
Right.
closed up.
And then the residents do show up on some weekend, of course, and their water is absolutely brown. So, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I wasn't gonna get up and interrupt him, he does great.
Yeah.
So, Trevor and Jason, are you guys going to come back and give us additional information?
Part two. This is everything else.
Is that
Everything else
horse
at
not dead
DVR.
yet?
Normal news. We just looked and it's rained 1.2 inches in the last hour.
Seriously?
1.2?
Yeah, it started going at 4 inches per hour was the rate. So we're already over what we got yesterday.
Might as well get our money's
Yeah,
worth
good
from these
suggestion with
contractors.
amending that language, Dan.
My God.
Talking about flushing flows, all that.
Did you want to start with anything specific?
I'll try to go really quickly because we touched on a lot of this. Just want to give you an update. We're working with, we're here to just let you know what's going on out at Diamond Valley Ranch, both from kind of a larger project aspect and then Jason's day-to-day operations. So on the bigger picture, we mentioned we're working with OES with Tamarack funding, and that is, we've already gotten reimbursed for replacing fences out there. We're working on getting reimbursed for the silt fence that we installed along the diamond ditch. And then additional measures that we're trying to make sure are going to be funded because we got caught by that debris removal not being funded. We're looking at hazardous tree removal. Looks like it'll be an eligible expense. So these are burned trees along our ditches and roads that could fall on one of our operators or our crew members or impact a facility. So that'll require getting a forester out there to identify the hazard trees. I think that's not expected to survive past 5 years. And we'll get all those trees out of there, and that'll be funded, and that's at 100%. So we're really trying to use this OES funding as a tight timeline. We're trying to get this done by November, and then also implement a number of erosion control measures to mitigate some of these impacts we're seeing on the facilities. And the nice thing is by doing, while I wish there were permanent long-term solutions, it is hopefully we'll see some natural stabilization while these are in place over a few years. And there are measures, we don't necessarily need to go through like NEPA permitting, things like that, that might be encroaching onto federal lands. So that's really good. So that's on the OES side. The other pot of money we're pursuing related to Tamarack fires through FEMA. FEMA has some mitigation funding, and we're using that to basically take care of the forestry element of what's burned on our property. We're only able to use that money on our lands. Initially, we were looking at using those funds to pipe Diamond Ditch and potentially Dressler Ditch, but I mentioned the land ownership and leasing issues earlier. But we are moving forward with a major forestry project out there that'll be implemented over several years, and that'll really set us up for success for grazing or reforestation in the long run. So those are the current ones, and then we mentioned we've got a number of agreements coming due. Steve Caswell is leading the Receptive Water Strategic Plan. That's looking at everything from injection or reuse in the basin to how we export out there. Following that plan, we're really planning to look at what the long-term vision is for our Alpine County operations. That's going to coincide with a number of agreements coming up. We mentioned that we have an agreement with BLM related to Indian Creek Reservoir. We also have our long-term right-of-way lease agreements with BLM for these facilities that are on their property. We're currently, as you're aware, working through some items with Alpine County. We have a half dozen ranchers with contracts that are coming due in 2028. We also have the Diamond Ditch that's coming due in 2028. So we have a lot of agreements that are coming up. So maybe we'll practice our skills with Tahoe Keys, and then we can change our focus to these. But it'll be exciting time to look at what we're doing with water in the long run, the strategic plan, and then figure out how we're going to approach these negotiations with a number of parties going forward. That will be a big work item in the future. That's more than I meant to say, but questions on that, otherwise Jason can talk about day-to-day operations.
Yeah, so the day-to-day operations, I'm not going to bore you with a lot of the small details. We've spent a lot of time logging information on the pivots, logging acre feet of water, reservoir staff gauge levels, the oxygenation unit out at ICR we check several days a week and log information. All of this gets turned in to Evo for analyzing, reporting information that he deals with on his end. So that's just some of the busy stuff that we do on a regular basis down there. As far as what we we're working on up until yesterday is some of the smaller scale vegetation management. As we enter into summer with high temps and high fire hazards, we scaled back a lot of our vegetation management just for fire mitigation. We've been shifting some of our focus over to getting some of our maintenance work done on the dams for the state dam inspector. We've got some vegetation work to do on the dams, upslopes and downslopes, tow drain maintenance. We've got some burn tree removal that we've got to work on at the auxiliary dam for Indian Creek Reservoir. So all that work's going to carry us well into the fall. As far as the district alfalfa operation goes, we've completed 2 cuttings this far. We've sold our first cutting already and should be receiving a check on the 20th of this month for around $54,000 for the first cutting. So given the market price for the hay that we're seeing this year, everything's inflated, we are already 80% of total revenue that we had last summer just with the first cutting. So the second cutting's done, stacked, it's already been inventoried, it's for sale, so we're just waiting for someone to come along and make an offer and purchase it.
It's under a tarp.
Yeah, boy, we got a tarp just in time. The guys were there yesterday, right before it started to dump, so that all worked out very well. Our third cutting, I expect we're going to be getting in by the middle of September, and then we'll be done for the year. So, been working just ever so lightly with a contractor for Liberty Utilities. They've been out assessing some more hazard trees and have been out removing some more hazard trees on the property and around Diamond Valley Ranch. And right now, as far as Harvey Place Reservoir goes, we're on track to be at Deadpool so that we can tackle the valve replacement job in mid-September, or at least get ready to start on it. So that's kind of
BLM, have they indicated where they might want to go with Indian Creek Reservoir in terms of, there's no indication of kind of where they want to go, take it over?
We have not had that conversation yet. It came up when we met following the Tamarack fire, and just because I know the agreement's coming up, we told them we weren't going to make any fast moves, but we also told them that we're working on a strategic plan, and we really want to make sure that we know what our long-term goal is when we enter those negotiations.
And how's the grazing going? Is Doug moving his cattle around and keep the stubble heights high?
Doug's doing real good. He's been doing what he's been doing. He's been doing a great job up to this point, and he's continuing on. He's got a good crew out there taking care of business when he's not around. They are rotating cattle, and one thing they're going to actually start to do is, I don't know if he spoke of it when you guys were down there over the earlier this summer, but he acquired a neighboring property, and so he's going to have even more property to rotate cattle on.
Good.
So there's going to be more opportunity to give the fields a rest, more opportunity to have the feed come back, actually probably longer intervals than what we've seen in the past. But he's going to start moving cattle a little early this year. He's going to start moving cattle off the property, going to the feedlots to have them finished off, probably starting around the end of this month through the middle of September. So, we should, and I should be giving you a check on Monday for his second half of his lease payment for the year.
And then with
$80,000.
Right, yeah.
And I guess with the hazard trees, are we taking those to market, or are we keeping them on site, using them for revetment, or what are we doing with those?
What we've heard is there isn't a market for them. There's no reason they can due to trucking costs. It's not feasible. And also, the Sierra Pacific has so many plans to burn that it's that middle with the conversation logs. So our plan is to use them for stabilization on site. We even stockpile because of these problem drainages on the left. This check dams.
Cool. Good.
The other item on the grazing contract, we are looking at expanding his leased area. That'll make more of the property eligible for rates reimbursement programs. And then also looking at some sort of credit for work performed. So if we did need to draw on his crews to say handle some of the vegetation management along ditches, we could offer him some sort of credit in exchange for getting something cheap, things like that. We're trying to just figure out what his operation can offer us to reduce our staffing needs. And I guess the other exciting thing, Alpine Fire Safe Council. We're working with Alpine Fire Safe Council. So from what's the village called?
Alpine Village?
Alpine Village, which is Barber Road, south almost to Diamond Valley Road, and then east back over to Diamond Valley Road. There's a 15-acre swath. We're going to work with them to do fuels reduction at no cost to us on about 200 to 300 feet bordering our property lines that's on that urban interface for that whole swath. So we're trying to do it as being a good neighbor. We have heard some people are already upset that we're going to be doing clearing in that area, but we're working on outreach, and Shelley's engaged on that. So there's going to be some sort of open house for it coming up. But again, we don't even have a cost match on that. They're handling everything from environmental through the contracting. I think we're going to offer up a water truck for dust control, but that's about it.
How was Woolly Star? Everybody wants to know about Woolly Star.
I guess it was successful. They held up their end of the bargain. They did all the flagging prior to the event through the property like they're asked to do, and then they came back afterwards and removed it. So, and you wouldn't know anybody was back there. So.
Back next year, perhaps.
And I think they do have plans of carrying this on in the future, yeah.
Great.
Did we get a check for that?
No check for that?
We did.
We got a check? Okay.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So wanted to provide a quick update on what John had mentioned in board goals about the South Tahoe Zero Emission District. So the City of South Lake Tahoe Sustainability Coordinator is working with regional partners to form a South Tahoe Zero Emission District. The group currently consists of the city, Barton, South Tahoe Refuse, Lake Tahoe Unified School District, Lake Tahoe Community College, El Dorado County, the district as partners, and then the League to Save Lake Tahoe as a supporter. These agencies originally came together back in 2020 to apply for a Department of Energy grant to fund renewable energy in South Lake Tahoe. We didn't receive the grant at that time, but we're working to form a partnership to improve the adoption and visibility of renewable energy projects, battery storage, and climate-forward actions in our region. By working together, we're hoping that we're able to take advantage of economies of scale and share and learn from each other's projects. So one such project that the group is currently tracking is the South Tahoe Refuse Biomass Pilot Project. So TRPA currently has a moratorium on biomass in the basin, and South Tahoe Refuse is working with Wisewood Energy to prepare a basic assessment on safety and environmental considerations for a 125 kilowatt pilot biomass project to be located at the refuse site. They're hoping that assessment will be completed by the end of the month, and they'll submit it to TRPA first for their staff to review, then for the Forest Health Committee to review, approve, and it would eventually go in front of TRPA's governing board. South Tahoe Refuse request is that TRPA lift the moratorium for the pilot project, not for biomass in the basin as a whole. Utilize it as a learning experience. So pending what impacts may be identified, they're a little concerned there might be noise impacts identified that they'll have to mitigate. STR is expecting the project to cost around $2 to $3 million. So we'll see how that goes. The South Tahoe Zero Emission District of those agencies, we're looking for ways to support their project moving forward. So once they have a plan in place, we're looking at ways to submit letters to TRPA showing support. I'm hopeful for that project. A pilot project is a great way to open that can of worms. South Tahoe Refuse has green materials on site to utilize. So we'll see what comes of that. So this group, this South Tahoe Zero Emission District, it just formed. We've had 2 meetings, I think. The goal is to meet monthly. We're currently drafting up a memorandum of understanding for all the partners involved. And once that's finalized, I'll share it with the board for review and potential approval. Just wanted to let you know that we're working on this in this regional group on these efforts. Any questions, comments?
I was just really excited with the advancement of biomass. First real positive step in a long time, and it took a lot of effort and energy from a lot of people to get there, so that was really exciting.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful for that, and that South Tahoe Refuse is a part of this group. They're excited to share information on how the project goes, pros, cons, are these facilities we want to, small facilities we want to add elsewhere in the basin if approved. So moving on, next
Kelly,
thing.
real
Sorry,
quick.
Dave.
I guess I just don't understand something kind of fundamental about this biomass. I had to pay to remove a wood stove that was a pellet stove, very efficient, but it did not meet TRPA air quality regulations. And I guess by another name, that's a biomass burning facility, but I had to remove it. And though they're illegal in this basin, you can't transfer a home, you can't buy a home that has one without having that removed. And so I guess I get that. It's an air quality thing, it's wood smoke. We don't want wood smoke here. But all of a sudden when we call it biomass, it's good.
It's just more.
And biomass burns things and puts CO2 and other carbon products into the air. So how could that possibly be a global warming mitigation strategy? I guess I just don't understand some of these things.
I'm not a biomass expert. That is something that this group is opening up. I'm not sure why the moratorium was placed. I have assumptions, air quality concerns, emission concerns, and so I would think that that's what this report, this assessment will look at, of that South Tahoe Refuse is having Wisewood Energy produce. And those are things that TRPA will have to determine, right? And that not all wood burning stoves are banned in the basin. The technology has improved to reduce emissions, but yeah, it's really hard to pull out an old stove when homes are transferred and leave an empty hole.
Yeah, and it was a wood pellet stove, which are as efficient as a wood burning stove you can get. But yeah, I don't understand. And if this initiative turns into investments on the part of the district, I'm going to need to understand it even more, I think.
Right. We're very far off on that. This is a pilot project that South Tahoe Refuse is putting forth that they would be paying for, and it'll be interesting to see what happens, right? There's been discussion of biomass. We have all this fuels in the basin. Could we utilize that to generate local power? And so we'll see. We'll see what comes of it. That the entities around the basin have discussed potential biomass projects for a long time, and they haven't been allowed. So this is opening. Well, who knows? We don't know if TRPA will open the gate, but this is opening the gate to see what could come of it. How does it work in the basin? Is there opportunity for it here?
Yeah, my understanding is that the new systems, biomass generation systems, are more have better emissions. I haven't seen the data or the cut sheets, but there's more control and better technology.
Kind of like clean coal.
No, it's rather, if you look at it, it's in its whole. So you have the technological advancement of kind of biomass unto itself, which, although emitting some, emits much less than, say, natural gas. And then if you look at it kind of in a broader spectrum, the trucking cost just to move this lumber around from the CO2 generated from the transportation, just from that is in far excess of what you would do if you burnt it to fuel within one of those systems. So actually doing what we're doing now creates more CO2 than burning it within the system here locally. So it's from a CO2 perspective, it's actually a dramatic increase.
Yeah, what is the parent material of that CO2? Is it currently growing vegetation, or is it stuff that's been stored for millennia?
So there's a lot of things into it. But to your point about the I won't say hypocrisy, the uniqueness of which well, if I could be honest, I think with technological advancements both within the home, I think as we look to electrify systems that the question always is with the continuation of natural gas is, well, we want to have something that is a redundant system if the electricity is cut, those however many days, so many years, and I would be more supportive of in-home biomass systems to back what you had before, to be honest with you, Dave, but we'll leave that to a separate discussion. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Sorry, took you on a little ride there.
It was a good question, though.
Any other questions, comments before moving on?
I think so.
I was just going to say one other thing. I know and I've mentioned this before, I know the city's actively working with the CPUC regarding their tariff. That really impacts us. I think that should be an item discussion within the STZ, and then also something, as I continue to mention, is, we engage with our state officials that's of importance to us. That's it.
Yeah, I'm excited for that group. I think that it's having the right players in the room to work on issues together. I'd like to invite you all to the 2022 Tahoe Summit. This year, the summit will be on Tuesday, August 16th, up at Sand Harbor. It's the 26th summit, and it will be hosted by Nevada's Senator Rosen. If you've been to past summits, you know it's a chance for bi-state partners to come together to discuss ways to improve the environment in the Tahoe Basin. Registration, the day begins at 9, the event begins at 10. We're working with partner agencies. We'll be hosting a booth at the summit for the Tahoe for Fire Suppression Partnership. So highlighting the need for additional funding to improve fire suppression infrastructure. So upsizing water lines, adding hydrants, all that jazz. So please let me know if you're interested in attending. I can RSVP on behalf of the district for all those that would like to attend. There's no on-site parking, so we can collaborate on carpooling. RSVPs are due by August 10th. And the keynote speaker was just announced. It's the President's National Climate Advisor, Gina McCarthy. Any thoughts for right now, or you guys can email me later if you're interested in going.
Attend, we need to post a quorum notice.
I'll be out of town, but I would love to attend.
Yeah. Thanks.
No, I don't. I just want to. Did you just say if more than 2, then it's a? I don't think that's true.
Well, so you can attend ceremonial type things, and we don't have to post, but we've always erred to the side of being conservative, and we posted it at quorum. Yeah, notice of quorum.
I guess if we're discussing policy or something, if we're discussing business, that's one thing, but just attendees, we could all 5 be at a conference like that if we're just spectators and not violate the Brown Act.
Posted a notice of quorum because there's a perception out there that the board members are together and they could be discussing board business. So we've always just erred to the side of caution.
I don't think so. Gary?
Technically, you're right. As long as you're attending, the board members are attending whether it's a social event or a forum like this, and you're not required to post anything. But the district's policy has been, as long as I've been around here, to let people know that there could be a quorum present at these events, but that no business is going to be conducted or discussed. Again, that notice is not required by the Brown Act, but the district has always tried to be very transparent in letting the public know about board members attending where they might not otherwise go, oh my God, look, there's, 3 board members here. Why didn't they post a notice? And so we want people to know that the board members are attending, but it's also a reminder for everybody that, we don't talk about business, district business at those events.
Yeah, and I guess there's really no way to make that a comprehensive policy. We could see 4 or 5 of us showing up at some other event just by accident and never have noticed it. And it doesn't mean it's the business of the district. It just means we all showed up at the same place. We might all show up at the beach at Timber Cove to listen to music on a Thursday night.
That's true.
And we don't put out an announcement for that.
Could be at Steamers on Taco Night. Who knows?
I think when it comes to an event organized like this, we try to be very transparent.
Oh, yeah.
Takes a couple minutes to post it.
I'm not going to go, and I don't think Kelly said she's going.
Nope,
So.
I don't think I'm going to be able to go
We
either,
don't have
and
to worry
neither will
about this one.
Nick.
I have one item of scheduling. John and I were talking about potentially rescheduling the operations committee meeting from the 15th to sometime later in that. So, likely before the board meeting. So, anyway, I'll reach out for specifics on your schedule here.
Thanks.
Hey, John, looks like you're up.
Okay. Liz, do you want to grace us with the staffing update for today?
2 hours into it.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
I told John I'd help him out with the staffing update. I didn't realize it'd be such a long board meeting. A lot of information, so I'm going to go quickly through our staffing update. It's exciting and continues to grow. So I'll start off with the underground repair sewer department. We had 2 positions posted due to a well-deserved retirement and then an internal promotion. We interviewed on Tuesday 7 really great candidates and finally landed on 2 successful ones this afternoon. So we're 2 hours ago, we were in that process of notifying all the candidates that had interviewed. So that's really exciting. Moving on to the engineering department, we had a staff engineer interview last week. Kind of a small pool, a small turnout of applicants, but we did offer